So our vision is to live in a world where creativity catalyzes change. In Place of War is a global organization that uses artistic creativity in places affected by conflict, climate change, and social injustice. So In Place of War started as a research project in 2004 at the University of Manchester in the UK, exploring the role of arts in sites of conflict. And those initial research findings spurred practical programming and projects. So leveraging, I guess, what we could call our privilege here in the global north to how could we support kind of local grassroots initiatives in global majority countries. And central really to this thinking is what we call our changemaker network. So we know that local people often are experts in their communities and that they hold invaluable knowledge and they need to be involved in the process so that they can make the change they want to see. So to this end, we collaborate with an international network across 40 countries of organizations, very grassroots organizations, already using arts in their communities to make social change, calling out social injustice, or also addressing the climate crisis. So we work with these organizations in music, theatre, and across different art forms. And this support takes many different forms. It can be equipment donation, it can be building spaces for creative activity, it can be providing platforms to amplify voices that are often unheard, it can be providing funding and helping people to share stories. We also seek to make the case for the role of the arts in society, so through research activities, so we often collaborate with universities in Europe and also in the UK. And this is about how we can make an evidence base to influence policy, to collect robust data, to generate new insights and perspectives. In recent years, our work has naturally shifted to the issue of climate as it's becoming more of a critical issue with the communities that we work with. I think particularly around the idea of climate injustice and the increasing link, and a very obvious link between climate issues, both as a cause and consequence of conflict. And one question that we often get asked is why art? And probably you wonder what I'm doing on this panel. What is the role of art in a conversation about conflict or climate?
Yes.
And you probably think that art is just a form of entertainment. It's something for fun. Maybe you invest in art. You have some nice pictures in your house. But we can see it also as a form of kind of transformation. So we look through history, we can see that art has played a role in mobilizing people. We look at the civil rights movement in the US, or more recently, the Arab Spring. So what is it about art? So it's creative expression is this natural arena to facilitate dialogue and debate. It enables to maybe communicate ideas, express emotions, or share experiences in a safe space or in a way that might not be possible in conversation. Art can provoke reflection on how people think, act, and then internalize their reality, understand the reality of others, and reimagine, create, and advocate for alternative futures. It can call on people's emotions. It can build communities, raise awareness, and generate new understandings. Given this, art is a powerful process to mobilize people, as we have witnessed in our work over the past 20 years. So how do we build a movement? And this is something that we continually try to do. And moving into the climate space is a journey of discovery. So we're exploring how the arts can be used to distill complex scientific data to win hearts and minds. So this is through one of our flagship projects called 𝗧𝗘𝗦𝗦. And this is about how we create a movement. How do we draw on research and practice in arts-based peace building that we see to translate it into the climate space? So 𝗧𝗘𝗦𝗦 is a global project telling the story of climate change through music, working with indigenous communities, musicians, cultural organizations, scientists, and climate experts and activists. So the project aims to distill complex data, which is sometimes too overwhelming for the general public, to reach people's hearts and minds and to create a call to action. So really we're thinking here that this arts-based project can provide an accessible entry point into conversations on climate, to work, I guess, with the nuances of everyday stories at both the global and local level. How we connect with nature, our relationship to nature, how it resonates, this message resonates with people and generates this idea of making them better custodians of the planet. The hope here is that it foments what we call the Overton window. So this is when an issue becomes mainstreamed and politically acceptable amongst the general public, with then a view that this will then permeate into more formal political spaces. We've always worked at the grassroots level with local-led, devised arts-based responses to challenges, but linking up organisations across the world using arts to advocate for social justice, peace and climate is a really key thing that we do. This helps to build networks, share knowledge, provide collective problem solving, and amplify voices. However, working at the grassroots we need this aspirate help them to generate these new pathways so they can permeate wider structures, because of course these issues at the grassroots are not, sorry, my computer's just crashed a little bit. Yeah, so working at the grassroots, we need to develop new pathways for policy engagement. So working with networks both in the global north and also in the global south. So an example of this was our 100 Agents of Change project, where we took 100 young people in the UK from what we would call disadvantaged or marginalised backgrounds, so people with disabilities, people from minority backgrounds, so people who are perhaps going to be more affected by climate change, but the ones who are least responsible. So this is the idea of climate injustice. And they learned from collaborating with artists and activists from Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East to develop their own creative responses to climate issues affecting their communities. They were then supported with seed funding and mentoring to develop these projects within their own communities. But of course, the idea here was to open up spaces. So how can we have these often unheard voices with lived experiences, generating new pathways in policy? So this culminated yesterday in an event at UK Parliament where the young people presented their work to decision makers, including the Ministry of Culture and Climate, sharing their learning and making collective demands to advocate for more youth-led arts-based climate action and more support. So this is part of a wider strategy to drive systemic and structural change by creating new pathways for more inclusive, sustainable and impactful policy in which marginalised voices with lived experience on issues are often ignored. So the next part of the journey really is to create these new channels. And our next project is presenting a music-based activity at 𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗟, so highlighting the issues of water through the experience of Indigenous and global majority female artists and their community.
Thank you, Teresa.